All right. Thank you, Effie. Good evening. How are you doing? I think I'll randomly choose someone to tell us how their day has been as I try to share my screen. So let me just choose someone from my screen that I can be able to see. Let me. There's someone called. Please don't mind. I don't know. I don't know anyone, so it's just a random choice. So please don't feel like I'm picking on you or something of the sort. So is that Dudsley or Dudsley? How do you pronounce that? You just say hi to us and describe how your day has been. Maybe you can use one word to describe how your day has been. Is that Dudsley, or please you can help
Yeah.
me, pronounce it better.
Yes, thank you. That's my name is Dudsley. I've had a wonderful day. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then we can maybe nominate someone else. Owino Atieno. Just one word to describe how your day has been. Owino Atieno, can you be able to hear? Okay, I'm not sure if Owino is there. So we will just go right into our conversation this evening. I just hope and trust that we have been learning, and the conversations have been meaningful to you as they have been to me, because I think this has been quite a week, because I think it has been very intense, talking about all these things within a short period of time. These are things that probably most of the time take days to talk about and to address. And just talking about all these topics, since we started till now, I think it can be very, very heavy, especially if you are preparing and having to share all these things. But I hope that this has been meaningful to each one of you who has been attending, and I hope that by the end of this week we'll be somewhere better, and when it comes to our mental well-being. So tomorrow, as Effie mentioned, we'll be having an interactive session where we will be just sharing thoughts, our experiences. And as we say, this is a therapeutic space, as it were. So we will be having experiences, talking about maybe lived experiences of what um, your life has been like, especially in regard to the topics that we have been talking about. And then we'll have our last session on Friday. So we are actually almost winding up, and I hope that we can make the few remaining days meaningful. So today we are talking about practical self-care and resilience building. So we're going to get deeper into that and to just unpack what that means. But it simply means, some of the tools that we can use to just safeguard our mental well-being, how we can take care of our mental well-being and safeguard our mental space, so that we can be in good health generally. So that's why I've entitled our discussion for this evening, the mental health toolbox, the mental health toolbox. And so when you talk about a toolbox, um, when you talk about a toolbox, we think about tools that we use maybe to build something or to repair something that has been damaged. And there is something that is called do it yourself, where people can, do things on their own without necessarily depending on an artisan or someone who is skilled in doing that. For example, if a chair breaks down in your house, so instead of looking for someone to come and repair it, you just go and look for tools to come and repair that chair, where you just look for tools and do it yourself without paying someone to do it for you. If, for example, you want to paint some furniture, I have done that before, and I felt like the person who painted it previously did not do a good job. So I went and looked for, a brush. I went and looked for the paint. I looked for the mixers and all that, and then I started looking for ways I can be able to paint. So watch videos online on YouTube, and it was an interesting experience because at the end of the day, I feel like I did a very good job. And I look at that furniture and I feel like, oh, I did this, and that was really nice. So we usually need tools when we want to do something. And when it comes to our mental health, there are things that threaten our mental health. And that is where we need tools that can help us to thrive. And that is where self care comes in. I know this is a very, very sensitive area to talk about, especially for Christians. When you talk about self care, there are people who ask themselves so many questions. We know as Christians, we are supposed to we are supposed to look at self as something that should be crucified and be denied, and we are going to unpack that and bring that to perspective. So self-care simply means intentional things that we do to nurture our emotional, psychological, and social well-being to sustain resilience. In other words, during adversity, during tough times, we need tools that we can use so that we do not lose our health emotionally, psychologically, and even socially, so that we can be able to reduce stress and prevent burnout. So self-care is not like a very complex thing or a complex word to understand. So it simply means that intentional things that we can do on a daily basis or even like after a period of time that can be able to nurture our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. We're going even to look at the spiritual aspect of that. So nowadays, the times that we're living in, we have this hustle culture. People are very busy, especially those who are living in urban areas or in very busy spaces. We have these realities where people are working very hard. People are really going out of their way to make sure like they have food on the table. They are able to be busy so that you can feel productive at the end of the day. And so at this time when people are so busy, it's easy to view time that you take to rest or to unwind, to just take some time for yourself, that can be seen as a weakness or wasting time, with our hustle culture and all that. And so we're going to see that actually this is not something that should be considered as a waste of time, because if we are fatigued or if we burn out, and burnout is very, very common nowadays, especially in the corporate world. And when there is burnout, you cannot be able to work effectively. You cannot be able to be very productive, and it actually hinders your creativity, as it were. So you may not be able to perform at your optimum. So that's why we need like some time to recharge. So self-care is simply choosing to honor your mind and your heart on a daily basis so that you can show up fully for yourself, for your dreams, for the people around you, for those people that you say you love the most. We said, and we talked about social connection, and we said that social connection is like what catches us when we are struggling. It's like a net that catches us. And so if we ourselves are not doing so well emotionally, socially, we cannot be able to stand up for someone, or we cannot be able to be there for someone else who needs our help and our support emotionally. And so that's why it's really important, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. So I think a common saying that we can talk about. So these are sustainable habits that we can do to protect our mental, emotional, and physical health so that we can thrive in the long term, where we can lead a balanced life and be intentional so that we can meet our needs without harming others. And so self-care is not really like antagonizing to our Christian beliefs and our practices as Christians. There is a place in the Bible it says that if someone will be my disciple, he should deny himself and carry his cross and follow me. That's in Luke chapter 9, verse 23. Also, in some other places in the Bible, like in Galatians, the Bible says, Paul says that I am crucified with Christ. I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. And so, where does now this kind of self-care that we are talking about come in? Now, this is rooted in self-respect, and self-respect is something that is rooted in Christian teaching. It does not mean like instant gratification. It simply means, or as I'm going to give example, it will be more clear to us. So it looks like something like taking a walk and to clear your mind after a very long day. maybe sitting down and maybe maybe you've had a maybe a heartbreak, maybe you've fallen out with someone that was really meaningful to you, and you're wondering how to go around that. And so sometimes you're not even finding time to eat. You are not even taking care of your physical well-being, like even to take a shower, have a change of clean clothes and all that. Sometimes when you are overwhelmed with emotions, simple things like those can be very difficult for us to do. So that is where we need like to remind ourselves and talk about self-care, how we can take care of ourselves so that we can show up on a daily basis to go after our goals, our dreams, and even be there for others who may need our help. And self-care can also look like, having boundaries, like saying no. If people come to you and maybe they want you to go out for a night, and maybe you are not in that space where you want to go out, you can say no, that I'm not able to do that at this moment. And so it is the opposite of self-indulgence. Self-indulgence would look like short-term pleasure that feels good at that moment, but later could be harmful. It's oftentimes like an excessive escapist truth that is used to numb maybe feelings or stress instead of facing and confronting maybe emotions and addressing them. So it's a way of escape, either through like some pleasures, maybe through food, through like maybe partying the whole night and all that. But at the end of the day, in the morning when you come back, the situation and the problem is still there. So sometimes we can use escapism as a way of coping instead of, focusing and looking at the emotions and confronting them and addressing them. That is the healthy way of dealing with emotional challenges. And so self-indulgence is something that can maybe drain your resources in terms of time, money, and even energy without necessarily replenishing you. And that like maybe eating junk food on a daily basis to try and cope with emotions or stress and ignoring the health consequences of that. And then there's also selfishness now. And that is like just being too absorbed with yourself, with your needs, without prioritizing someone else that maybe is close to you. Maybe you're relating with someone, you're constantly like talking about yourself and your needs without even thinking about how the other person feels, without prioritizing their wants and their needs as well. A lack of empathy, like your views and your opinions come first, and you don't care about what someone else has to say, especially if your behavior and your actions impact them in a negative way. It's actually an harmful entitlement that can impact other people. And so when we talk about self-care, you would want to think of like what activities that can make you feel restored, can make you feel better without feeling guilty. You know, are those activities harming someone else? You know, and can those activities be sustained in the long term? Those are some of the tests that you can use to think about self-care. And so I'll just I can say partition this or maybe group this into different spheres: physical, emotional, uh, social, and spiritual, and then we can then come to a close about what we can do now at a physical level. What can we be able to do that can help us to be restored, to be re-energized, and to show up? So that can look like moving, like exercise. That's very simple. And sometimes these things seem so easy and straightforward, but when we are experiencing mental health struggles, when we are isolating ourselves, when we are experiencing emotional difficulties, these things can be very difficult. Sometimes it takes a learning process, pushing yourself, like having to learn that, it's okay. I need to go out and take a walk for just maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. That can be very, very difficult, especially when we're experiencing struggles mentally. And so that is why we have to remind ourselves and talk about these things and see how important they are. Because at the end of the day, the body and the mind are greatly connected. Now, there's a book that I love. It says that the connection that exists between the mind and the body is very close and intricate. When one suffers, the other sympathizes. So the body and the mind are greatly connected. So when one benefits, when the body is in good shape, it will have a positive impact on our mind, and the vice versa is true. So when we are moving on a daily basis, it does not just have an impact on our physical stature, but also it has an effect, an impact on our mental well-being. So moving on a daily basis, like maybe walking, dancing to some tunes in the house or maybe where you are, that can be very, very meaningful. Or even you can try a 10-minute YouTube workout. I see this, online again and again. Or even some stations, they usually have these programs in the morning, very early in the morning, where people try to do these exercises in the morning. So this can really help in the long term when we do it consistently. So moving, and I usually say, especially moving out in the green spaces goes a long way. And then food is really, really important. Now we may not really have time to talk about all these things, but I would say that our food greatly impacts our mental health as well. And that is why there's a field that is becoming more popular nowadays called nutritional psychiatry, where more research is showing that our our food, our nutrition impacts our mood. That's why the saying goes, good mood or good food, good mood. In other words, when we have a nutritious diet, nutritious food, it can have a ripple effect on our mental health. That is why nowadays, there's a research, especially on the gut microbiome and the brain and the gut connection, which shows that when we eat like whole foods, we eat unprocessed foods, it helps to diversify the gut microbiome, thereby releasing very important, vitamins and, amino acids, which help in turn to produce neurotransmitters in the brain that help us to feel good and to help us regulate, our emotions as well. So that is why, like, sometimes you ask yourself, if I have a loved one or a friend of mine who is struggling with their mental health, what can I do? Sometimes even cooking a meal for them and supporting them and being there for them can really go a long way. So prioritize like a whole meal over maybe daily chips or Indomie, um, and these foods that are really not as nutritious. So that can go a long way to boost your mental health. Then hydrate. Water is the cheapest glow up, and I know we all know that. Then sleep. Sleep like a boss. 7 to 8 hours. No phones. 30 minutes before bedtime. The rule. That was sleep hygiene. And these are some of the things that I usually share with my clients. Sometimes you have struggles with sleep. Maybe sometimes you are waking up in the wee hours of the morning and you can't go back to sleep, or you you have difficulty initiating sleep when you go to bed. And so these are things that we can try and learn about sleep hygiene, about things you can do during the day so that you can get quality and quantity sleep in the night. And then eat, prioritize. I said ugali plus greens, but that's just an example. And then shower, cold rinse in the morning to reset your mood. If it's you take a hot shower and then rinse using the cold, that's a very good technique. Or even a warm or hot bath in the evening when you're going to retire. And then socially, what are the social self-care strategies that we can use? Now, you can check in on a weekly basis with a friend. Now, this is a meaningful kind of friendship, not just that shallow, surface level kind of association, where you can really check in with someone and talk about what's really going on. If you're having a difficult week or a difficult day, you can freely talk about it without really having to hide what's going on. Having a social circle can really go a long way. Having a sense of community, a sense of belonging. Many people, have this hopelessness because they feel like they don't have a belonging, either to family, to friends, or to a community of people that they have similar, practices and beliefs that can really make someone feel lost. And so a sense of belonging goes a long way. So it doesn't mean like you have so many people around you, but having a sense of belonging, even if it's just 2 or 3 people that you feel like these are my circle, as we were looking at yesterday, Daniel and his friends. So And then another thing that you can do, to take care of your social well-being and, some social self-care is having boundaries. Sometimes if we are people pleasers and we don't have that ability to set healthy boundaries, it can eat into our mental well-being. That is why we have to develop ways of, setting boundaries. And sometimes we need help with that, especially when we are growing up. Sometimes we are not very keen on the kind of relationships that we are forming and the right boundaries that are healthy. It can leave us feeling guilty. Sometimes when we do things that are not building us, that are not working for us, that are, they are in turn harming us emotionally, that can leave us feeling exhausted, drained, and feeling guilty. So we have to learn how to set healthy boundaries. And then we can join a community with purpose. Sometimes you can be on your own. Maybe I have had people like who are working. They have very good jobs. Their career is thriving, and you just work and you come back home and you don't have a social connection. You don't have a community. That's really important, because as we see, as we love, as we are learning, as human beings, we are social beings. We need to socialize. We need to interact with one another. And so joining a community, maybe a savings, community, or a book club, or an exercise community, or a podcast, community where you're just having some similar ideals, that can really go a long way. It can make you go out of yourself and, interact and mingle with people who have like interests. So that's social. And then we can have some digital detox. Sometimes if we are just following content online, and we have online friends in quotes that are not there when we want to really have um, open and meaningful discussions and conversations. When you need to talk to someone, those friends are not there. Or if you're following certain pages that make you feel drained and unaccomplished, you can mute those pages. You can mute those group chats, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed, and those toxic pages that are maybe eating into your self-worth, as we learned. So that can really, really go a long way. So some of strategies that we can use when it comes to social self-care. Now, emotionally, we can use like journaling. We already mentioned that. So you can actually write down what is going on and how you're feeling. It's like you're talking to someone who is listening to you. They may not like give you solutions or responses, but you will have released, or you would have talked about what is bothering you. And so what is weighing heavy on you, for example? What can I write about it? So, for example, if I'm drained, like, oh, I went to an exam and I did it and I feel like I didn't do so well and it's really bothering me and I feel anxious, I can write it down. I say, I tried my best. I wrote the answers that I feel like I could have written, and I did my best. And then once you write it, you tear it down and you say, okay, this is now done, and you move forward. And you can even cry if needed. There's no shame in crying. Tears are emotional sweat. When we are overwhelmed, or we are physically strained, when we are exercising, we sweat. Sometimes emotionally, when we are also like overwhelmed, what do? We can cry. And so it's okay. I read a book once, I think like 5 years ago, that was saying like, when it's heavy, even the clouds produce water. In other words, when the clouds are heavy, it rains. So it's normal when we are feeling heavy to cry. It doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us odd. It's a human language, that even God understands. And so you can even laugh, intentionally. You can share memes. I have a younger brother who is in the university and usually sends me the memes, and I really, get out of my busy and serious disposition, and I laugh, and that really goes a long way. And so I usually tell him, send those memes. When you find a nice one, send it to me. And so that's really meaningful. It can make your day and help you, to laugh a bit and to give you some positive emotions. And if you are also overwhelmed, you can actually name the emotions. Research has actually shown that when you write down the emotion that you're feeling, or the emotions that you're feeling, it can really go a long way in helping you to process that emotion and to know like where it's coming from, and why you're feeling that way, and what can be done about it. In other words, to just help you to process that and find some practical ways of dealing with that emotion. And so if you're feeling like frustrated, you can write it down. You're feeling unseen, or you're feeling hopeful, you can say, for example, I'm feeling unseen. What has made you feel unseen? Maybe it's a word that someone said, or maybe it's like maybe a friend that you reached out to. Maybe you called, you texted them, and they have not reached out to you again, and you feel like maybe they have other better friends, and they are not reaching out to you, they're not responsive, and so you feel like you're unseen. So how do you cope and deal with that? You can have a peace playlist, a playlist of your favorite songs. I usually have a bunch of those on Spotify. You can listen to that help you to process. Music therapy is a very, very interesting field that, especially in the West, people practice that. Just using music as a way of dealing with trauma, music as a way of dealing with anxiety and depressing moments. Where you can listen to your favorite music, or maybe listen to the favorite, lyrics, and then you can relate to those lyrics, and it helps you to process how you're feeling, and it helps you to feel better. Learning music, how to play an instrument, and that's biblical actually, because the Bible says, like, you have given me a new song, in Psalm. And so, like, sometimes we can put our experiences into song, and that can really go a long way in helping us to process our emotions and to deal with the challenges that may come our way. Now, when it comes to our mind, our brain, what can we do? What kind of self-care strategies can we use? Now, we can use, you know, learning new skills or new strategies, or maybe learning a new course, free courses. You can challenge yourself. I remember there was a time I lost my job. I was working somewhere, and there was war, and that war became very intense, and we had to leave the country. And I had to come back home, and when I came back, I had no job. And I remember I it was within a space of a few weeks. And I remember when I came back, I had no job. So I told myself, let me just try to cope with this by learning some free courses. So I went online, searched for free courses. I found a few, and they actually helped me a lot to enroll in another program that I started that year. So challenging yourself, using your mind to learn new skills and strategies can go a long way. And then challenging negative thoughts, reframing. We've learned about that. It's called cognitive restructuring, and it's a very, very common strategy that is used in therapy, where you challenge the negative thoughts, like when something comes and tells you're worthless because this girl left you, or because this boy left you. You are not going to be, you're going to you stay single the rest of your life. But is that true? Is that 100% true? Is that a fact? You know, and then focus hacks. When it comes to your mind, you can use techniques like the one we mentioned yesterday, the Pomodoro technique, where you work for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break, and then you continue with that cycle as long as you have some energy. And then nature, just sitting under a tree. There's no phone, no gadgets. You just rest and just breathe you know breathe. That really goes a long way. And this is something like you can actually train yourself to do. Just taking a break from the phone, from everything, and just go and sit down in nature and just listen to nature, and just sit down there. There's a lot of healing power that is found in nature. We're going to see that. And so just breathe, close your eyes, reflect about what's happening, do an edit of your life, and these are not an edit, but an audit, the way you do like audit of books. You can audit your life and ask yourself, like, where am I? What's going on with my life, and what is meaningful to me, what's important to me, and why am I here, and what do I want to achieve. Those kind of things, they can really give a lot of meaning and purpose to you. Then some spiritual self-care strategies that we can use, meditation and pray. Sometimes 5 minutes of silence, and just meditating upon some passage of the Quran, or maybe the Bible, depending on your religion. You can actually have like a favorite passage of scripture or the Quran that you meditate on, and you pray. that prayer, and you listen, and wait, for 5 minutes, just thinking about what you've read, and reflect about that and how it applies to your life. That can really go a long way. Then gratitude practices can go a long way. You can have a gratitude list. you know I am grateful for this, or thank you for this. You can do that, and at the end of the day, or at the end of the week, you will be surprised at how many things you have that you are grateful for. And then volunteering, helping at church, the community, or even mentoring someone. This can be spiritually, this can be academically, this can be emotionally. Someone who is maybe struggling emotionally, you can be there for them, you can support them. If you are better at managing your emotions and you've learned some skills, you can support them. If you are like someone who is new to your fellowship, or maybe where you attend church, you can befriend them. And I remember there is a time I was working somewhere, and I went, to church, and I felt out of place, and then I went back again. And that can be a reality, and so you can actually befriend someone and be there for them again and again and support them, and that can really go a long way. And art as well, that can really go a long way. You can sing, you can write poetry to express the needs of your soul. And you can find this even in the Bible, in the Psalms, the Proverbs, and even most of the Bible writers. They used to express themselves. They used to ask God questions, like like David says, when I am overwhelmed, I will look up to you, because you are the rock of my salvation. He says, like, why are you cast down, O my soul? In other words, was having some self-talk. And then he says, hope thou in God, you know, because I will yet praise him in the land of the living. That's like a language of the soul. And so that is something that we can always do. There are people who express themselves better, like by drawing, by singing, by writing music, or even by writing poetry, whatever works for you. That can really go a long way to express yourself. So of all the things that we are talking about, you can actually pick you can even pick one from each of those sets, like physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. You can pick one from all of those, and then try try one of those every day for maybe a week, and see how that goes. And if you make it like a culture, a habit, it will have a little impact, but in the long term it will give you better results and great outcomes, not just for your mental health, but even other pursuits that you have in life, your goals and all that. Because if you can even manage time better, that means like you'll have done more. If you have better emotional regulation, it means like you have more friends, or you will. Because even the Bible says like a person that has friends must show himself friendly. So sometimes we wonder why we don't have friends, but sometimes it's because we don't have the social skills and the emotional skills of sustaining and maintaining a healthy friendship. So those will not just help us, but they will also be beneficial to other people that we come into contact with. And so there is no one size that fits it all. So whatever works for someone else may not work perfectly for everyone else. Whatever works for me as my way of taking care of my needs, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and all these other spheres of life, may not necessarily work for each and everyone else. And so the demands of your daily life, can dictate what type of self-care would be ideal for you. For example, university students, nowadays we assume that university students has a very rich social connection, because, you have many friends and all that, but that's not true anymore nowadays, like, because social media has somehow impacted our social skills. So it's true that you can be surrounded by so many people, but you don't have like someone that you can really engage with, and in a meaningful way, and share with them. And so um, your needs may not really be the same with someone maybe who has retired, who is at home, or maybe a very busy uh, professional who is working and maybe has a family, and they have to come home. The families have needs. The workplace has needs, and then they also have their own personal needs. So trying to balance all that can really be overwhelming. That is why, like, each one of us has to look at how our daily routine, our daily life looks like, and then find what would work best for you. And as I conclude, I want to use an example of, Adam and his madam. And I'll just use this as an example. And I know this will apply to each one of us. Now, when God took the man, Adam and his madam, he put them in a garden there, and then they were staying there. And it says that he took the man and put him in the garden to work it and to take care of it. So there was some purposeful work there. It was moving, there was clean air, there was fresh food, whole and unprocessed. So there was self-care there. There was self-care there because he was physically active, the man. He was having some work, he was moving around, there was fresh air, he was in nature actually. And then he was eating, these whole foods. So there was some benefit of that to his mental health, as we're going to see. And so God actually designed that even before the fall, that there should be some joy in working. It was not like a menial thing, it was not like a punishment, it was something like beautiful. So when, for example, you're going out and you're doing something meaningful, and you know that at the end of the day you have some results, and that is why, like, having a dream is enough. Sometimes we are struggling with our mental health because sometimes we ask ourselves, like, what am I really doing with my life? What's really happening? And sometimes we ask ourselves that question because we feel like we don't have a dream yet. We don't have something that is pushing us to work, or there's something that we are working towards. So having a goal, a purpose, a dream to live for is enough. Even when you don't have money or you don't have a job, just having a dream and telling yourself, one day I want to achieve this. I want to have maybe a family, maybe I want to have a kid, or maybe I want to do something to be there for some people. I want to do some kind deeds. I want to see some people are living better because of my existence. That can really go a long way. So, so this man and his madam, they had a purpose that they were living for. And so they were nourishing their body, they were moving it, they were resting it. And that's why, like, there was day and night. We learn in the beginning in Genesis that, night was separated from the day, so that like man will have some time to nocturnal rest, in the night, to just unwind, to just, because his body needed rest. And this was before, like, the fall. And and then there were social needs, social and emotional needs. It says in Genesis 22, verse 18, that it is not good for the man to be alone. So for some time, the man was alone, but got to a point where it was not good for him to be alone. He needed a companion. He needed someone that could support him, even emotionally. And so he created a companion for him, for emotional support. And that is true. We also need that. We need that. We need emotional support. We need people around us that we can talk to when things are heavy, when things are overwhelming us, when we are thinking about difficult times, in life. And so we need that support. We are not alone. And then there was also boundaries. Sometimes it's not bad to say no. No is a complete sentence. I usually hear this, but it's actually there as well from the beginning. God told them, do not eat from this tree, to just protect their mental peace, so that they don't have, like, toxic overload. They don't have to experience guilt, shame. They don't have to experience all these negative emotions. He was protecting them. And so there was boundary. So we have to also learn how to set healthy boundaries to protect our well-being. And then community. We need community. We don't have to be in isolation. So that's why they're like, it's not good for him to be alone. We need community. We need um, people around us, even though they may not, like, be many. Even if you have, like, two or one person that makes you feel that you have a sense of belonging, that can really go a long way. And of course, sometimes we say, you are a Christian, you should have God. God is enough, and that is true. But even Adam, at that time, he had the companionship of God, the angels, and all that. But he needed someone of his kind. He needed a human being that could understand, his needs and all that, and you could, one of his kind that he could relate to. And that is why he created, Eve. And that is true that in our day, even though you are a very strong Christian, maybe you go to church, you are involved in all these activities, you also need companionship, human connection, social connection that is human. And so that is really true. And then you also need, time spiritually, when you need to have some fellowship and all that. Because the Bible says that they heard the sound of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day, like as a very special moment. Like it was an ideal moment, like it was a slow time, as it were. Maybe in the evening when you're done with work and you're just resting and you're just chilling, that's like maybe the cool of the day. And they were having fellowship with God. So like let us have that time. It can benefit us also, like mentally. And now there's research that connects like mental well-being and spiritual connection and a higher power. I've seen like even patients who are in recovery, like from substance use, and just having that hope, having that sense of a higher connection with God and a higher being can really help them in their recovery. And that is also scientifically proven. So like daily fellowship with God, that is very natural. As breathing, we are spiritual beings. We worship something and we need that. And so there's also a sense of vulnerability and trust and safe relationships. And I want to challenge all of us, to think about this. Do you have authentic, uh, raw relationships where you can be free to be yourself without fear, without hiding some parts of yourself, without feeling like, if you do this, people will not be accepting of you. The Bible says that the man and his wife were both naked and they felt no shame. Now, this is in the context of, them being husband and wife. But I learned from that the importance of vulnerability and trust, feeling safe. If someone is naked and you are seeing them, you feel safe. You are not shameful, as it says there. But that also brings a picture of trust. You know, in our relationships, in our associations, you should have that aspect of vulnerability. Not those relationships where you are burdened with many things, but you can't be able to open up and to talk about them because you're not feeling safe. So that can really go a long way. So true connection requires authenticity, not performance. Performance simply means like just being what you think the other person needs to see, but it means like it needs genuine and meaningful and mature relationships need people to be who they truly are. True good relationships that are healthy, they bring us to be who we truly are. They make us to be free to be who we truly are. And that goes a long way because shame destroys intimacy, but intimacy heals. And so just find your one area where you need balance. If it's social, if it's spiritual, if it's emotional and mental, you need to work on all those areas, and you can't just focus on one area and forget the rest. You can't be just going to church and praying and reading and then you don't know how to manage your emotions. You don't know how to interact with people. You are not humble, you are proud, you are self-centered. You have to be balanced. You have to work on all these areas. And Jesus is the example. He took care of himself. He loved community. He also had time to be alone to pray, and he also had time to socialize with his friends. Like Lazarus and Martha and Mary used to frequent the house of his friends and to just have a quality time. He used to be free there because there was no judgment. He could be able to do things there that he could not be able to do in his own home because of his older brothers. And so that is really, really important. So balance is key. So we learn from Eden that we need to work, we need to rest, we need to play, and also we need to worship. So boundaries protect your peace as well. Even paradise, they had a don't touch rule, and we can learn from that today. So as I was preparing this presentation, I also decided to make a self-care template that you can also go and think about. Maybe I can do this in a minute, and then I can give it back to Effie. So maybe a morning routine. This addresses all the 5 areas that we have talked about. So like, I was testing it like maybe the morning is my cool day. And then you say, God said, let there be light, not let there be panic. So you say, I tell myself, I'll drink water before my phone. Yes. Even before you check statuses and memes. So um, just rest a bit and think about what you want to do for that day and all that. Maybe you can write it down, and then you can read one verse, Proverbs for wisdom and Psalms for venting, and then You just think of yourself as a phone. If you don't charge, you will maybe be overwhelmed. And so sometimes we wake up and we rush to our phone. We want to check our ex. Amepost nini, ameka nini kwa status. You want to know what's going on in their life, and then body care. Now that is physical, you know. You have to appreciate, like, you're created and made in the image of God. You can love the way you are. Like, I love my bald head. I love my stretch marks. I love my difficult, nywele ngumu and all that, because you're creating the image of God. And then you can move. You can listen to 3 songs. Like, I love Bach. Sebastian Bach is a classical music composer. You can listen to 3 of his songs. You can add your favorite, food to your breakfast and all that. And I was thinking myself, even snakes in Eden, they ate, fruits. Why am I on chips? Like, if you find yourself like eating like junk foods every day, each and every other time, some unhealthy foods, you can challenge yourself, to improve on that. And then emotional check-ins, Jesus wept. So if Jesus wept, he could also be overcome by emotion. Regardless of why he was weeping, he wept. That we are sure. So that means, like, he was emotional at some point. So if you are not allowed to express your emotions, you should ask yourself, are you in good company? You can also journal. You can say, I'm stressed about something, and then tear it up, and then you cry if need be. And then social needs or social self-care strategies. No man is an island. Even Moses, he needed an Aaron and Hur to hold up his arms when he was tired. And so you can look for someone to cry with, and if God took a rib from Adam to make Eve, why are you giving your whole heart to jokers? So that is an essence of boundaries. Like, if people are taking your time and your commitment for granted, to learn how to set like healthy boundaries around that. And then, of course, resting, Sabbath mode, like rest, like God did. God worked for 6 days and he rested. So you're not a robot to keep studying and working each and every other day. And so you can find something that makes you, rested and feeling better. You can then do this for, 21 days. You can track what you've been doing and where you need help and improvement, and this can really go a long way. So that's the end of my presentation. I'll take it back to Effie to bring this to a close, and then we'll finish. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Like every other time, the presentation, like there's always something new to learn and to add value to our life, And about self-care, it calls for intentionality for sure. Yeah, I know I'm one person I struggle with, like, when you get home after a long day, you feel like the phone is the place to reset. But actually, like from experience, after maybe going through the phone, it leaves me more drained and just yearning for more of the phone. Yeah, so just think about it. Do what